am fortunate today to be joined by Niranjan Kumbi, who is the Director of Product at Adobe. Niranjan is, I think, all things AI for Marketo, and we've had the pleasure of working with him and his team on the Marketo MCP. Niranjan, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me here, Ahmed and the team at allGood. So as you said, I'm Niranjan Kumbi. I lead products for B2B customer journeys at Adobe. So that includes Marketer Engage and also Adobe Journey Optimizer B2B edition. We had a number of exciting announcements at Summit. One of them was MCP. I'm super glad to talk to you about MCP as well as other AI innovations that we are rolling out to the Marketo and B2B customer base overall. So very happy to be here, and thanks for inviting me, Ahmed.
No, I really appreciate you joining. I was at Summit and I was just so fired up to hear about all of the AI innovations that were happening. Maybe you can just start us off by telling us a little bit about kind of the product strategy, the product vision surrounding AI before we get into the gory details of features and capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we all recognize, we are definitely in the agentic era and AI era. We've been talking about AI for a very long time, but I think it seems real in this moment. At Adobe and within our B2B customer journeys portfolio, um, our strategy is to essentially meet where our customers are in their journey in adopting AI. We serve customers up and down the segments. We have customers that are the biggest hyperscalers. We have frontier model companies that use our products. We have new and upcoming startups that use our products. So we serve a wide variety of customers, and we want to meet their needs depending on where they are in their own journey of adopting AI. So from that perspective, we have a spectrum of offerings that we announced at Summit. So for customers that are starting with their own like agentic, tools like maybe Claude Code or Claude Desktop or OpenAI, ChatGPT, things like that, we offer MCP. So we want to allow them to connect to Marketo, execute tasks within Marketo using our MCP tools. For customers that don't have expertise in working with MCP or connecting to their own agents, we want to offer a set of purpose-built agents that accomplish most commonly executed tasks that takes most of the time. Those could be campaign, program creation, email build, program validation, and I'll go through some of those details in a little bit. And for customers that are looking to compress their entire workflow, not just an individual task. So, if you think about building a campaign and launching a campaign, that involves many different teams, many different humans executing different tasks, coordinating with each other, and many different systems too. And some of them could be Adobe systems, some of them may be systems outside of Adobe. So for those customers that are looking to bring those campaign SLAs from, let's say, 7 days or a few weeks to a few days or a few hours, we also have offerings like the Enterprise Coworker that we announced at the CXO level, the customer experience level. And then we also have customers that are looking to what's the future with AI. We have done marketing automation in a certain way all along for the last 10, 15 years. And they're looking for more AI native solutions where AI understands the users, their behavior, their interest, their intent, and automatically does the next best journeys, next best content, those type of like AI decisions dynamically. For them, we are offering Adobe Journey Optimizer P2P edition. So in short, we have a spectrum of offerings. Different customers are at different stages, and we are happy to work with all of those customers.
I love it. So, depending on where you are in your AI maturity, you can onboard at any variety of these different capabilities and features. Now, I know that we probably have within the audience a broad range of people in terms of expertise. And by the way, folks, feel free to drop your questions in the the chat. We'll be sure to leave some time at the end for it. But Niranjan, maybe let's just let's start. Like I've you've thrown out the term MCP. You've so let's just to ground everyone. Let's walk through what an MCP and a skill is. So MCP actually just stands for Model Context Protocol. Really, what it is, it's an integration layer that allows you to connect whatever your LLM provider is, whether it's ChatGPT or OpenAI or Gemini, to any sets of systems. In this instance, Marketo. And um, a skill is basically a play. Think of it as a playbook, instructing AI on what to do. So if you find yourself like in a chat window, always asking the same sets of things again and again and again, like you may ask it today, and you're asking it the same sets of things tomorrow and the same sets of things on Wednesday, you may want to actually create a skill, which is a series of instructions that may actually leverage an MCP to do things on the Marketo side. Um, and I guess, Niranjan, the one thing I didn't add here is just agents. How should, like, for someone who doesn't know what an agent is, like, how would you describe what an agent is?
Yeah, I mean, you described it well, right? So skill as a playbook, MCP is your sort of ingredients. I like to call skill as a recipe too. Like for those of you
Hmm.
who love cooking, there has to be, you can have all the ingredients um, that you can have in your kitchen, but you need a good recipe to make that good dish. So and then if you think about the agent itself is the is the hardness that takes that skill and execute it. Think of it like a chef, right? That knows how to make it for how many people you're making it. So brings in the enterprise context, all the governance aspect to it, all the context, the business context, and really executes that skill to produce the output that you're looking for. So I used a little bit of that cooking analogy here, but hopefully that described what an agent is.
I love that because the idea of a chef implies that there is the ability to make game time decisions around, do I need to add a little bit more salt? Do I not need to add a little bit of salt? And I think that's the super interesting thing about agents is that they have autonomy to make decisions depending on what the task is. So they may end up using a variety of skills, or may end up just ad-libbing stuff in order to be able to accomplish a task. So Naranjan, one thing about MCP is anyone can go in and create an MCP, like could in fact create an MCP for Marketo as an example. So why use the Adobe MCP versus one that someone could create on their own?
Yeah, very good question, Ahmed. So as a fun fact, I created one in 15 minutes on my machine. This was several months ago. So you're right that anyone could create an MCP and deploy it, and there are a lot of people who have created it. I think where at Adobe we are focusing on from an MCP perspective is three things. So one is all the security and privacy aspects of exposing something like an MCP. So creating network level isolation, making sure that data is within the tenant and doesn't go beyond the tenant and things of that nature. Making sure we handle any kind of prompt injection kind of vulnerabilities. So we have a much higher bar of securing these endpoints, and which is where it takes time for us to review it with our security. So that's one area where we invest very heavily. The second is some of the capabilities in Marketo, they're not exposed through our public APIs. So if you think about the number one thing that customers do within our platform is creating a segment, which is a smart list, and running a smart campaign, which involves creating flow steps and flow actions, things like that. So those capabilities are not available through our public APIs. But we have made those capabilities through our MCP, and we are going to make more of those capabilities available because the agents can understand what those skills are and effectively use them. So that's a second unlock where we are also investing significantly. And then the third area I would say is the context. Um, with regards to the MCP, right, you can throw 200 tools at your agent, and if it loads all that data in your context memory, it consumes a lot of tokens. It burns a lot of tokens, no matter which LLM agent you're using. And one of the things that we are doing is adding a lot of the Marketo context to make sure when you execute certain tasks, it is optimized for executing those tasks within Marketo. So it doesn't burn a lot of tokens. It only brings the tools that are needed for the specific task that you're trying to execute. So those are sort of three areas. The last one is not well recognized, but I think as customers start to use these MCPs and see how token usage goes up, they will realize that, some of these investments that we're making will help them optimize their workflows as well.
Amazing. Um, well, now that you've sort of teased us with the idea of agents and MCP, do you want to go ahead and show us a demo of what's to come?
Yeah, for sure. Let
Go ahead.
me jump my screen here. Let me know if you're able to see my screen.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, so this is the new Marketo interface. Some of you, we have started rolling this out to hundreds of customers, so many of you should already have it. If not, you should have it soon, in the next few weeks or within a month's time. Um, so first of all, you'll see this is the refreshed Marketo interface, and here on the My Marketo um, page, you will see this build with AI. This is your uh, front door into getting into all the agents, but the purpose-built agents that we are shipping within Marketo. Now, how do you get access to this? One, we have to turn on this feature for your Munchkin, for your Marketo instance. So there is a sign up form. If you haven't signed up for it to get early access. But even if you don't sign up for it, just wait, a few weeks, and you should all have access to this. The second thing to know is there is a permission called access build with AI. So if talk to your admin, if you don't have access to it, there is a new permission that needs to get enabled. And once that's enabled, it's enabled by default for all the product administrators within Marketo. But others in the organization, if you need access to it, just talk to your admin to get access to this new capability. So when you click on build with AI, it takes you to this interface, which is an agentic interface. And you can see we have shipped a number of purpose-built agents for different tasks that you normally execute within Marketo. And that could be creating a program, validating a program, importing leads, analytics, so on and so forth. When you get started, you come to this page, which has all the agents. So mine is an internal instance. So I have more of this, and some of you may only start seeing program QA and lead list import, and eventually you'll start seeing all of this because all of them are at different stages of rollout. So some are available to some of our private beta customers, champions, and so on. But eventually, all of you should have access to this. On the right-hand side, you will see your familiar Marketo artifacts or your marketing activities tree. So you can select any of these artifacts here in order to provide context. So for example, I could go into my folder here and select a particular, let's see if I have any program that I can select here. It immediately adds the context fill, and any question that you ask, like QA my program or other types of questions regarding that program, this context is automatically set here. So that's a neat feature. So where you don't have to, once you select it, it automatically sets the context. Now I want to show a few capabilities here. I have a recording that I can quickly walk you through. So what are some of the things that you could do? I'll show you some of the favorite features that I have here. So one is one of the common questions that people have is how is my database health? How, show me my lead health. So something like this would have taken you like finding the right reports in different places, finding all the right dashboards to get to that data. But now you can just ask AI, show me lead health, and it brings up a report right here, which invokes the analytics skill and brings information about how many leads do you have, how many of them are marketable, how many of them are invalid email, how many of them have opted out, what are the lead sources. So you can get to some of this very basic information in a matter of seconds or minutes. So this is very powerful for someone like who spends, you know, let's say hours trying to fetch this information from the application. The next question I asked is show me program performance. Something like this again would require you to go to program performance report or something like that. But now you can just ask the question here and it brings all of that data right in the chat window. So this is quite powerful and one of my favorites because access to data and democratizing the data is very powerful as you're planning your programs and future set of campaigns. Another example that I want to show you here is lead list investigation. One of the champion told me that they spend almost half their day answering to sales questions about why didn't this lead MQL, or why didn't this lead qualify for a particular program. Now, something like that, they have to go to Marketo activity log. They have to go through all the activities logged in there and troubleshoot themselves. Now, given the power of these agents and the agent skills that we are shipping, you can get to that answer within minutes. So I asked the question, why didn't a particular lead MQL, and produce this comprehensive report. And it showed me what were some of the factors that led to the disqualification from an MQL, within a matter of seconds. So you can see all the lead score changes, so on and so forth. So that's quite powerful as well and could save hours and hours from your day-to-day tasks. The last one I want to show here, and I can't go through all of the agent skills, but one of the things that I want to show here is, you all get campaign briefs. They are in unstructured form. They could be in a PDF, in a Word document, in a spreadsheet, and they contain a lot of information. So you have to parse through them. And then you have to decide like what artifacts do I need to produce, what program I need to clone, what type of audience I need to create, what are the emails that I need to create, what is the cadence for something like what we are doing today, like running a webinar. How many emails do I need? How many reminder emails do I need? So on and so forth. So all of those things requires hours for somebody to go through this document, analyze, what is the complete bill of materials for this campaign to run. Now, what I can do with program planning skill that we introduced is I can upload this entire document directly into Marketo AI and ask it to build me a setup document or a bill of materials document. It takes a few minutes, but once it does it applies all your organizational rules that you define in a skill file, and that's in this gear icon on the top. So if you click on that, you will see an organizational rules section, which is a markdown file where you go define all the business rules of your organization, whether it could be how you define a program, how you name the program, which template to clone, what is the folder structure, what is the token structure, so on and so forth. Once you've defined all that, it takes your campaign brief and produces this comprehensive, bill of material for you to leverage as an input for your program creation. So you can stop here. You can then go create the program yourself. But why would you do that if you already have an agent to do that? So you could potentially take this, feed it to your program creation agent, and it'll go create the program for you. You can also ask it to make modifications, adjustments, and this artifact itself is downloadable. So you can, we know many customers have users that don't have access to Marketo for governance reasons or other reasons. So you can share something like this with your campaign managers, marketing managers, and say like, I read your campaign brief. great. Like, this is how it's going to translate within Marketo. Is this good? Like, can I get your approval? So something like that could have taken like hours or sometimes gone into multiple days. Now, all of this can be achieved within a matter of like, minutes or hours. So that's super powerful. So let me pause here. Ahmed, what do you think of some of the capabilities here?
I love it. Right. I think anything that you can do to automate having to go click through lots of screens is a huge plus. So, I mean, naturally, my question is, when do I get my hands on it? Right. So, tell us a little bit about, betas for both the agents as well as the MCP, and then if you're able to share timelines around when it'll be generally available.
Yeah, so we are taking a very measured approach with the rollout. We obviously have all of these capabilities built out. They're in different phases of rollout. So right now we are uh, some of these features are in a closed beta with some of our Marketo champions who are our super users. Um, Many of them are already in public beta or open beta where we have rolled it out to hundreds of customers. So that's with regards to Marketo AI. Our target is to roll this out to all Marketo customers by mid to end June. Now, some of those dates could change depending on like, whether, we got some feedback and we need to adjust certain things. So we are always like listening for those feedback. But our current target is end of June to roll out Marketo AI to all Marketo customers. They should see it in their instance. If not, talk to your admin or sign up through the QR code that we presented at Summit. So that's one. And then with regards to MCP in particular, so that's already with hundreds of customers as well. And we plan to roll it out to all customers also by end of June. So we are moving very fast on both those areas.
Okay, great. Um, so now, what I thought we can do is do some live demos on the MCP side. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. And um, all right, so I'm going to walk through um, a framework that I like to use, which is how do I think about adopting AI in my organization? And it's this idea of there's a crawl, there's a walk, there's a run, and there's a fly, right? And each of you may be in different stages of this journey. In the crawl, do something really basic, like just ask questions. And you saw Niranjan do that inside Marketo about things like lead health. I'm going to show you how you can use the MCP to do something equivalent. Once you start asking questions, you're going to find yourself asking the same sets of questions and wanting to be able to automate certain types of tasks. So this is what I call the walk phase, where you go through and you automate specific tasks. In the run, you begin getting into much more complex types of workflows, which is a combination of multiple types of tasks, and you want to automate them on end to end. And ultimately, where we want to get to is self-serve. Like, how do I get my end users to do this on their own? Ideally, if you trust your users, allowing them to access Marketo, but if you don't trust your users, how do I allow them to self-serve without ever actually logging into Marketo, right? So this is the different crawl, walk, run. So let's start with the crawl. So a perfect example of crawl is just chatting with your MCP. So let's say you want to understand the details of a particular program, but you don't necessarily want to fire up your browser and log into Marketo. So a prerequisite here is you're going to need access to the Marketo MCP. And so now I'm going to try my luck at live demos. Claude was running a little slow this morning, so we'll see what luck we have. Um, it's always interesting to do stuff live. So, all right. Um, I'm going to go ahead here and I've created a program in Marketo called Claude Demo Program. And I'm going to ask the MCP what tokens exist. Now, notice that I didn't actually specify call the Marketo MCP. So Niranjan was talking about just the intelligence built in the MCP. Um, I also, by the way, my security team wants me to manually approve and review everything that Claude is going to do, particularly as it relates to rights into Marketo. So I have the ability now, before everything that Claude does, to review what exactly it's doing and then allowing it or denying it. So I'm going to go through this process. And what it's now doing is it's connected into Marketo. It's found a demo program, and it's actually outlined, here are all the tokens that exist, right? Um, so this is great. Now let's ask another question. So let's basically say, I know that there are smart flows. Tell me about the smart flows that exist in this demo program. So again, it's going to ask my permission, I think, before doing some of this stuff. There we go. So I will allow it. And we're going to wait for it to come back and tell me all about the smart flows. Um, and so now I can see all the different smart flows that exist. So do you want to pull the actual flow steps? Sure. Sure. Tell me more about engaged. Let's look at the engaged flow step. And it will, in a second, come back. And this is where things get really, really interesting, because I deliberately made a mistake in the engage step. So let's see if it actually catches it. Now, it caught it. So it said, hey, I noticed that for your engage step that really your engage should be, the smart flow should be set to engage, but I see that it's actually set to influenced. So it actually points that out. Do you want me to change that? Also happens to notice that none of the UTMs for that particular smart flow is set up. Do you want me to go through the process of changing that? So this is where you get to some really, really interesting things, right? You can begin auditing your existing programs and having Claude go through the process of making these kinds of changes, right? So I'm at the crawl stage, and I encourage everyone to at least start here, depending on where you are in the journey, because you can see how powerful it can be. So, all right. So now we've successfully crawled. Now, what else can I do? The walk I had mentioned is being able to automate a repetitive task. So if you find yourself asking the same sets of questions in Claude, now might be the time to actually go through the process of creating a skill. Now, if you don't know how to create a skill, no worries. We actually have a bunch of free skills on our website. So let me show you here. You can go to allGood resources, free Claude skills, and you will see all of these skills that are available. I'm actually going to go and talk about one skill in particular just to be able to demo it. One thing that I find myself doing quite frequently is just I execute a particular program. I've sent a bunch of emails. I want to know the performance of those emails, right? So typically what I would have done is I would have downloaded the spreadsheet, exported the spreadsheet from my report from Marketo, and then upload it to Claude and start asking it questions, right? After a certain amount of time, you do that again and again, and you begin to say, well, do I still need to do that? Can I actually automate that as a skill? So we've actually automated this as a skill. So now let me show you how this works. So I will go in here and I'm going to kick this off. And so can you analyze my email performance for the following campaign? I'm now just going to go ahead and add a file. And I'll click on the demo, and here is the exported spreadsheet from my Marketo program, and it's going to kick off. Now, for time's sake, I'll let it kick off, so you'll see it start. But I'm gonna forward to an already completed one, so you'll see what the output is, just for time's sake. But you'll see that it has now called the skill that I had downloaded from the allGood site. And by the way, if you have no idea about how to install skills, how to load skills, check out our blog. We have detailed instructions on how to do this. But you will see now it's actually calling the skill and starting to go through the process of building this. And in the end, it is going to look like, let's take a look here. It will generate an artifact for you that will look like this. All right. And I will go ahead and show you. It is a Word file, so you can actually export it to Word, or you can upload it into your Google Docs. Interesting thing about the email performance report. It goes through and provides you your common statistics like delivery rates, bounce rates across the different emails in the program. And you see what the percentages are, but it actually also does benchmarking. So we as part of the skill have provided benchmarking data for a typical generic B2B SaaS companies. So you can begin to see how are you compared to your peers in the industry, and you begin seeing like what's healthy, what's not, and you get a red, yellow, green. Then what's really interesting is this skill goes through and provides an action plan, right? Like here are the things that are really, really critical for you to identify. Like it is identifying that you have a lot of hard bounces here, and so some suggestions around like looking at the data quality and making sure to suppress the list before you do your next send. Looking at things like soft bounce. Then within the next 30 days, there's some action items here about like subject lines. You may want to run an A/B test on some of these subject lines that actually have lower open rates compared to industry averages, right? And so you begin to have recommendations that get surfaced. And so this is a great example of how you what would have been a series of just asking Claude a series of questions, you can now create into a skill and start generating reports. So here's an example of a crawl. So now let's get to the more fun stuff, the run. So let's say you want to automate an entire workflow, and you saw Niranjan do this on the inside Marketo. How can you actually build a campaign inside Claude? So there are some prerequisites here. You're going to need access to the Marketo MCP as a starting point. And then we've created a bunch of skills here around the building of tokens within a campaign, and then also the building of an email briefing doc. So let me go back into Claude, and let's do this one end to end. And we'll get started here. And I am going to start by creating a new program inside Marketo. So I'm going to create a new Marketo program. I'm going to call it Ahmed MCP demo. I've specified what folder I want it to be in. We're going to call it into demo programs. And we will wait for it to come back. We'll see how fast this goes depending on Claude. And this one I would like to do end to end. So let's do this live. Go ahead and allow this task. And you can see now it's asking my permission to create the program. So I'm going to grant permission to create the program. And is going to, and this goes back to Niranjan's point about the MCP being very smart around, there's lots of APIs in the MCP, and it is being specific around which specific API to be called. Oh, okay. So it's calling, it says it already exists. So let's Want me to use a different name? Sure. Call it new Ahmed MCP demo. Go do that. Great. It's gone ahead and created the program for me. Now, at the moment, this program is completely empty. There's no tokens for that program. So I could manually say, hey, create this token, create this token, create this token, or I've actually created a document. So let me go ahead and share with you this document so you can see what this looks like. We'll go in here and I think we've got this. All right. So you can see that it's created the program right here in Marketo. And I have got a Word document, which is like, here are all of the tokens that I want, right? Now, here's where you get the power of the MCP. So I can go in here and just basically say, I've created all of the tokens in this document, a Google Doc. Can you actually update the Marketo program with the tokens? And we will see it do that. So you see here, it's connecting to Google Drive because I have a Google Drive connector and is now going through and actually created all of the tokens for invites 1, invites 2, invites 3. Now and I'm go ahead and say yes, proceed. So actually now it's going to go through the process of creating the tokens. And you can imagine 27 tokens having to go in the UI and manually adding these now just being automated with a series of yes, no answers. And we'll go ahead and have it create it. So it's now successfully created this 27 tokens. I can now decide, well, I want to make some of these rich text tokens. So for all the headlines, can you make them rich text? And again, it's calling the MCP now, and it's actually creating a rich text token. And we'll give it a second to do that. So while it's doing that, I am going to do one more thing. Oh, let's allow it to do this. So this is, think of this as like, hey, you want to create a new program. I'm going to go through the process of creating this program. Maybe it's a new template that you're creating. Now you, for your process, you probably have and you see it's already created the tokens. Now you want to create a briefing doc, right? So because your process requires a briefing doc for the new campaign, I can basically ask this to create a briefing doc. And I think I called this, I can't remember what I called this. Was this new MCP demo? And it is now going to call another one of our free skills to go look at all these tokens and return back a Word document, which is a campaign briefing document. And so we'll give it a second to go through this process. And I can then, at the end of this, present this briefing doc to all of my end users to ask them from going forward for this new type of campaign, just upload this briefing doc and we can automate this entire process. So we'll have it go through and create the briefing doc. I'll give it a minute to do that. And then the last thing is once it creates the briefing doc, I can go turn around and have my marketers complete the briefing doc, or I can actually have Claude go through the process of writing content. So let's say you have a new campaign that comes up. You can attach your messaging doc and then say, hey, Claude, can you actually fill the campaign briefing doc based on the messaging brief? And then turn around and have that go ahead and update the Marketo program with all of that content, right? So for time's sake, I'm going to stop the demo at this point. But you get the sense now that these were a series of discrete tasks connecting to multiple sets of systems, Marketo, Google Docs, to be able to execute a particular type of task, as well as using the LLM to actually create content, right? And all of that can be done in an automated way. And so now let us go to the last thing, which is how do I do the run? So on the run side, um, let's take a look at this. All right. So on the run, let's say you've got users that you don't want to allow access to Claude. And you're a little nervous about letting them access into Marketo. One of the things that you can start thinking about is to try to meet your users where they're at. So let's say you use Asana. Like, how do you use Asana and automate that entire end-to-end process? So your prerequisites are you're going to be wanting to have access to the Marketo MCP. In this demo, I'm going to use allGood to be able to show how I can automate this end to end. And of course, you need to have Asana. So let us show this end to end. And give me a second here while I set everything up. All right. So here is my Asana, and I'm going to create a new task here, and we'll call it, Marketo MCP demo new. All right. So let's say I need to create a program in Marketo, and I have a briefing doc. And that briefing doc is, as an example, the briefing doc that I just showed you that we created through the MCP. I'm a marketer. I've gone through and I filled out the briefing doc. So I'm going to now attach the briefing doc to my ticket like I normally would. And that's got all my content. And so I've attached the briefing doc. Now, instead of assigning it to someone on the marketing operations team, I can assign it to Mary. Mary is our AI teammate from allGood. So I'm going to go ahead and assign this to Mary. And what Mary is going to do is she's going to be hands-on keyboard. So Mary is an agent. Mary is now going into looking at the Word document, or it could be a Google document, and trying to understand what is in that briefing doc. And she's going to go through the process of connecting into Marketo. So let me open up the Marketo instance here, and see if I can move this over. And Mary is, you can see, starting to give feedback to the user. I'm starting to build your campaign. Give me a few minutes. So she's now going to connect in. And while she's doing that, let me open up the campaign briefing document so you can see what that looks like. And here I've got a bunch of instructions. I'm telling Mary, hey, this is where I want you to, this is the name of the program. Here's the folder I want you to put in. And then, of course, the briefing document has all of the content along with all of the tokens identified. So we'll go back in here and we'll have it start building this out. And you can see it's now just created the demo file here. Sorry, no, it's created the Marketo program here. And I can go ahead and open it up, and we can see it's starting to build the different emails. And we're going to give Mary a couple of minutes now to go through the process of building this out. And let me go ahead and refresh the Asana screen. All right, so she's telling me that she's starting to build it. Now, if you want to allow your users to self-serve without necessarily allowing them to access Marketo, um, you can see that Mary's saying, "Hey, I've actually started building out these emails. So now we're gonna pop into the allGood interface here, and so you're gonna see essentially this is the email template in Marketo." And what Mary's starting to do is she's taking that briefing document and she's starting to update the the campaign in Marketo with the content in the briefing document. She's providing the user a preview of what that content looks like. So again, the user doesn't necessarily need to go into Marketo. She's also flagging things. She happened to notice that the user forgot to add a particular field, like forgot to add the EM1 headline here in the briefing document. So I can go ahead here and I can chat with Mary and say, can you make this Ahmed demo and make it green? So a couple of things here. I'm actually instructing Mary what to do. And what Mary's going to do is not only see, because I've said make it green, she's not only going to change the text, but she's actually going to do HTML. So she's acting as a developer and is going through the process of making these changes. You'll also see that she starts auditing and creating an audit log of all of these actions. Who's made what set of requests? So in this instance, she's making she's identified that I'm the one who's made that change. You see it's turned to green and everything is done. This, by the way, is reflecting back into Marketo. You can have multiple people start coming into this as you get to final reviews, making edits, making changes. You can even go in and start making edits on images, right? So we have the ability to go in within an image and crop the image, or change the colors, or layouts of images, replace the images, et cetera, et cetera. Again, without necessarily allowing people to have access into Marketo. And what this is doing is it's reflecting those changes back into Marketo. So you get a sense of like this journey that you can take to go from a crawl, walk, run, fly scenario where you start with just dipping your toes in the water with AI, and then doing kind of this end to end where you allow for self-serve. So, that said, I know we have a whole bunch of questions, and I wanted to make sure that we left some time for some questions. So let me go through and answer some of these questions. So, Niranjan, this is probably a question for you. What are the key differences between the Marketo MCP and just using the REST API?
Yeah, your REST APIs, if you think about the world before AI, you had to create integrations and you had to know which endpoints to call, what was the payload, all of those things. It couldn't take unstructured data. The benefit with something like MCP, particularly Marketo MCP, is you could connect to the MCP, similar to how Ahmed just showed, and you could just give unstructured information. It could be a Google Doc, it could be your Asana project you can point to, and it'll figure out which tool to call, what are the what are the parameters to pass. All of those things, all of the intelligence is brought by the LLMs, the agent that you connect with. So that's a quick high level difference.
Okay. All right. Some good questions about security. So, how is the security set up so that only designated users can access Marketo via Claude, and others who may not have access? So I guess it's within Claude. Can I restrict who has access to the Marketo MCP or not?
Yeah, so I can speak to on the Marketer side, and Ahmed, you can say like how you, for example, when you connect to Marketer, how you manage within your own organization.
Yep.
So as far as Marketer MCP is concerned, it uses the API key and credentials, and in the future, the tokens. So you can create multiple of those. You can give them different levels of access to those through those API users you create in Marketer. it's very similar to how you create an API user for your REST endpoint. So it's no different at all. So you just create multiple of those and assign it to different people or different agents so that we can control who has access to what.
Yeah, and that's probably the easiest way because then those people in Claude trying to access the MCP are going to get denied permissions. Okay, there's some questions about how is error handling happening, both on the agent side and on the MCP side for Marketo? Like, will it report back errors? And I think Niranjan looks like his screen is frozen, so maybe he's having internet connections issues. So let me see if I can answer a question. Oh, Niranjan, you're back. Did you hear my question?
Sorry, no. Can you repeat that
Okay.
question?
How is error handling happening? Are if there are Marketo errors, is that getting reported back into the MCP or into the agent side?
Yeah, for MCP, I think the errors are reported back to the tool. So you should be able to see those errors directly in the agents that you're executing. And if you're executing errors, these agents autonomously, you could create your own logging mechanism on your side to log, show those errors, display those errors in a dashboard. With regards to Marketo AI, where you come to our, interface and execute those. So we have pretty comprehensive like tracing, logging, audit logging, all of those things. We also run evals that allow us to judge how these agents are performing in terms of accuracy, in terms of like error rate, things of that nature. We plan to surface those, errors and things like that directly in the interface. So it depends on where you access the tools from.
Great. All right. So I see there's a question about my demo. So when I was demoing Claude connecting to Marketo MCP, or am I already running this with our prod instance of Marketo, or is this already connected to your Marketo? Yeah, so this was connected to a staging instance that we have of Marketo. So it was a test instance. So you can configure the MCP to point to a particular instance of Marketo, whether you want to use your prod instance or your dev instance. Again, in the crawl, walk, run, you probably want to start with a test instance if you can. Or you can point to a prod instance, but point to a prod instance and do your testing inside a demo folder. So you can just begin to see what are the interaction patterns, et cetera, et cetera. Within Claude itself, Claude will give you permissions. So when you're setting up the MCP, I had set it up to always ask the user permissions. And so that's why you were seeing Claude always asking me, I'm about to do this. Can I do this? It was interesting. Like when I first installed the MCP, I went to our security czar at allGood and I was like, hey, I'm just going to set this to all. And he was like, absolutely no. And he did the right thing from a security standpoint. He's like, I want all of the users within allGood to review the Claude output and accept them. Now, it's not necessarily the best user experience for me, but it is the most rational thing where you want to make sure that every single action that is being done is something that you've reviewed and looks okay. Some organizations are going to feel like I've done enough testing of this. I'm confident. I want to enable this to all, accept all. So don't prompt the users. Those are all configurations and settings you can end up using inside Claude. All right. There's a question around, does this introduce any heightened visibility and troubleshooting information related to Marketo and or Salesforce or other CRM syncs? Niranjan, I'm sure you could probably talk about the Marketo side.
Yeah, I mean, the first of all, I think I mentioned this in the beginning of the call that we are taking a number of steps to make sure, if you think about it, this is a new surface area of risk. And so we want to ensure that there is enough security, enough governance on our side to make sure your data doesn't leak and things of that nature. So we are making sure all those vulnerabilities are addressed before we release it. And that's kind of why we are, taking a measured approach, rolling out in beta first before we roll it out to all customers. You're now giving all these tools to agents. So there is definitely a chance that these agents might take some task which is not, which you didn't intend it to. So they may still have permission, but let's say they created the program in the wrong folder, things like that. That's where you get to define those governance guardrails through the skill file. So there are multiple levels of these governance, some of which we take care of, like on our side from a security perspective. Others, you have to apply your own organizational governance and guardrails through the skill files.
Great. So this one is a question about the agent demo, Niranjan, that you provided, which is for the unstructured document, campaign briefing document, can it include dynamic content by segment? And will the agent update the content for the applicable segments while setting default copy for all remaining segments?
Yeah, so one way to do it is through the tokens. So we expose tokens through the APIs. We have heard the feedback that our customers would also like to see a tool for the snippet where you can dynamically create snippets and get to that dynamic personalization. So that's something that we definitely are looking at and, hopefully add that on the roadmap. Um, I'll also share that if you're looking for one-to-one personalization, truly dynamic one-to-one personalization, so we have capabilities within Adobe Journey Optimizer. Particularly, we announced something called Adobe Journey Optimizer Prime Edition at Summit, which is also going out into beta next month. And so that has some very cool capabilities around AI decisioning and AI personalization to what you're asking for. So if you're interested in beta, do reach out to us and we can enroll you in that.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. And I realized that I didn't, I missed this part of a previous question, which was the Salesforce side. I think the question was more around being able to identify sync issues between Marketo and Salesforce. Is there a way of that being surfaced inside either the MCP or one of the agents?
Got it. Yeah, Salesforce Sync is one of the highly most used features that we have. So we've definitely heard that that data is not exposed to our agents right now, but that's a great idea. We have heard from a few other customers. We definitely can look into adding that visibility through the agent. I would say though that when it comes to campaign queue, some of our customers have also brought the question about, can I get visibility into campaign queue? If there are too many campaigns running and some campaigns are backlogged for whatever reason, can I get visibility into those? So we are introducing some agent skills to address that, but Salesforce Sync is a very good idea that we'll look into.
Awesome. Well, Niranjan, I want to thank you again for spending time with us and telling us about all the exciting capabilities that's coming from Adobe. I want to thank all of you for attending and for your questions. And we will send out a a recording of this presentation for all of those who attended and for all of those who couldn't attend. All right. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your Thursday.